everybody. So I want to talk about your soulmate, higher self. So not your soulmate, but your soulmate's higher self. And I don't really know of any other videos that have discussed this subject so much as they discuss your higher self, but I don't know if people come at it from this perspective. If you do know of a video that actually talks about your soulmate's higher self, then feel free to leave a link below because that'd be interesting to see. So I want to talk about my perspective on this. To do that, I want to discuss what a higher self is. So if you think about a sheet of paper, just one single sheet of paper, and think about this as being infinitely small, it's just a slice, then it is a two-dimensional object. It's got one, width, length, but if it's infinitely small, it's got no height. So this is a 2D object. When you add it to other paper and you get a stack, you get a 3D object. But this 2D object is still in the stack. So the 2D object is part of a three-dimensional object at the same time. So how does this relate to us? We are a three-dimensional object. So we're like one slice of our four-dimensional self, which is the stack. And as in terms of our life, it would be from the beginning. You can say from when you were conceived to when you die. However, I'd probably go so far as to say to the beginning of time, to the end of time, simply because at the beginning of time, well, let's go back. At your conception. So at your conception, you needed your father and mother to get together. And so parts of them are a part of you. And so you needed them. So part of you is still back in that generation before your conception. And of course, you can go on to infinity, to the beginning of time. Also, even if you don't have children, parts of you are going out into the world because you are thinking of things, you're doing things, you're interacting. And like the butterfly effect says, basically, you are having an effect on the world. You may have absolutely no idea what that effect may be, but you are having an effect on the world, and those, people who you affect are then going to go on to have children or affect other people in different ways. And so it goes on for forever until the end of time. And so basically yourself here, your 3D self, it's just a slice. It's just, this second, like it's over with. But then you're the next one in the pile. But this pile is from beginning to the end of time. This is considered the fourth dimensional aspect of you. Fourth dimension is time. So there is a higher dimension than that, the fifth dimension, which I would say is God or heaven or the vortex or zero, whatever people want to call it, the void, whatever, infinity, whatever started before this world. And if you're atheist, before the Big Bang, whatever was here before time started. So that is outside of time, that section, that dimension. So the fifth dimension is outside of time. And it can come in any time and see any slice of you here, which I guess I don't really need to get into right now. But basically, that's it. We are one slice of this higher dimension. And I would say that our higher self is at least fifth dimensional, where it's outside of time. Because if the 4D us starts from the beginning of time to the end of time, then the higher self is outside of that. I believe that it goes probably further than that. We don't really know. We can't see that. But that's my perspective on our higher selves. So the reason I bring up the sheet of paper and the stack is mostly because the sheet of paper is in the stack at the same time as the stack existing. We, as three-dimensional beings, are here in ourselves, in our lives, and our lives are still existing. I mean, just like that, we've moved on from one second to the next second. So our four-dimensional selves are still existing at the same time as us. And our fifth-dimensional selves, our higher dimensional selves, are still existing. And they are outside of time. The fifth dimension, or higher, can see every single second, every single moment of this life. So it knows better than us, and it exists at the same time. So the stack of paper exists at the same time as the single piece of paper. Our higher dimensional self is with us every single second, every single time we're here. We're the same. We're together. It's just we can't perceive it when we are really focused on the three-dimensional us. So our fifth dimensional us is not worried because it knows what's going to happen, and it's not surprised. It's not anxious about what's going to happen. So that's why when you're feeling anxiety or fear or anything, you've got this vibrational dissonance that makes you feel bad. So, your higher self's here is perfectly, let's go here up high, and you're down here feeling like, nothing's working out, everything sucks. Well, there's this vibrational dissonance that's making you feel really bad. If you're actually feeling the same as your higher self vibrationally, you're not going to have that dissonance. It's going to be harmonic. So, you're not going to feel bad. Just like dissonant music makes you feel bad, negative emotions make you feel bad because you're not seeing things the way your higher self is seeing them. All this to say, your soulmate works in the exact same way. Now, for soulmate, I would say, it doesn't have to be a lover. It can be your friend or your family, or a lover, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. These are just mates that you have on a soul level that we're coming here to interact with each other and to learn, to grow, that sort of thing. And so your mate's higher self is going through the same thing. It knows everything. It is happy. It is secure. And so let's say you are in a relationship with somebody. Let's say it's your lover, or it could be a friend, could be a family member, whatever. But let's say it's a lover. And you are upset that they did something. So you're upset. Well, that means you're not seeing this the same way your higher self is seeing it, for one thing. And let's say it's the opposite. They're upset, but you're okay. Well, they're not seeing things the same way their higher self is seeing them. So if you're okay that they're upset, well, I'm okay when other people are upset, right? Because I understand that they are not seeing things the same way their higher self is seeing them. So that's what matters in this world, basically. When you're interacting with people, you have to understand that they, when they're feeling negative emotions, are not actually seeing things the same way their higher self is seeing them. A lot of people are running around this way right now. The last 2 years have been crazy. A lot of people have found some reason to be upset. And they're not seeing this the same way their higher self is seeing that. It's perfectly calm. So my idea here is basically to focus when they're not feeling right. You want to focus on their higher self and the fact that they are learning something. You want to be happy. They're here to learn something. They're learning something. They are growing. This is something that they wanted to work on when they came here. And so you kind of want to focus on their higher self is actually really happy right now. And of course, if you say that to them, they're going to, the three-dimensional them is going to be really upset with you probably. So, unless they understand this, they're probably not going to really take that so well. If you're saying, well, your higher self is happy, when somebody is upset, that's usually not what they want to hear. But, that's a great way to think about it. Maybe shut up about it, but think about it. So if you are, in a relationship with somebody and things aren't going very well, you want to focus on what is the higher self version doing. If the lower self is frustrated, it means they're asking to not be frustrated about things. So you want to focus on, when you're praying, that's like saying you want to be thankful for what has already occurred. And so when you're praying, to say an affirmation without disbelieving it, because you don't want to say an affirmation while you disbelieve it. This is what I use. So if you want to say this person doesn't get easily frustrated, think of their higher self when you're saying the affirmation. So this person doesn't get frustrated because the higher self is not frustrated whatsoever. The higher self is understanding the lesson in this. So this person is understanding the lesson in this. This person doesn't get upset easily. This person is very loving and accepting that this is the reality. If you're talking about their higher self, you're not going to disbelieve what you're saying. If you're talking about their lower self, you're going to feel a lot of dissonance. You're going to not really believe what you're saying because the lower self is not showing signs of actually loving this situation and being happy. So if you want to say an affirmation with actually believing it, you want to focus on their higher self when you're saying it. And that's a super important point to make, because if you say an affirmation without believing it, you're just going to continually feel negative about it. But that's one of the best ways to pray for people. I think that Jesus is somebody who did this. So when he said, you are healed, go forth, it's because he can see the higher self is healed. And as long as he's believing that and focusing on that, that's a great affirmation. And he just believed it. And the person can go forth healed. So that's a way to pray for somebody, and to think about somebody is to think about their higher self that's outside of time, that's actually enjoying learning the lessons here. I've had issues with friends in the past where I was very upset because we broke apart for various reasons. And I understand when I talk to myself, thinking in my head here, that, they're actually happy. I mean, they might be totally upset with the way things went, but their higher self is actually happy because they learned the lesson that they came here to learn, because we were here to grow with each other and to teach each other lessons, because I know I learned lessons. And even if they have not yet in the present, but they are, in the higher self version. So it's very comforting and easy to just sort of think about somebody's higher self when you are, frustrated with what's going on in the three-dimensional. And it is a way just sort of to change your perspective. And of course, if you do this for yourself too, you can try to think about, well, my higher self is happy. My higher self is learning a lesson, and just another tip or trick that I do is to say, like, if I'm really frustrated at something, Father or higher self or whatever term you want to use, help me to see this as you see it. Because I know you're happy. I know you're not upset with this. I know that you're seeing love and beauty in this. And so just help me to see it through your eyes, through your perspective. And that helps a lot. If you believe that you're going to get that perspective, it might not be in the immediate moment that you say it, but if you ask for it, you'll receive it if you let it in, accept that there is another perspective. If you don't think that there's another perspective where everything's going okay, then obviously you're never going to hear it, vibrationally, or, sense it or whatever. So I hope this helped. I think that it's a great way to sort of view somebody else. Oh, and if you don't have a mate, one of the best things to do is to focus on what you do want. Obviously, what you want is already given. And the thing is, you want to focus on feeling the feelings that you want to feel. So you want to feel as if you already are in a relationship. So if you don't have a relationship, you want to feel as if you already are in a relationship. And it's actually a lot easier to do than you might think. Well, you have to get past the whole idea of three-dimensional, like, oh, he's not here or she's not here. But if you are focusing on yourself and feeling the feelings that you want to feel. So let's say you want somebody who's peaceful. Well, then focus on making yourself peaceful so that you attract somebody peaceful. If you're focusing on yourself and finding peace, you're going to start to feel peaceful, and it's going to be like, well, I'm already peaceful, By the time you get to the point where I actually don't need anybody around, that's when they'll show up. So you want to focus on yourself, working on yourself and becoming everything that you want in a mate. So that's something that you should be focusing on. But if you are relaxing, meditative, and just feeling calm and peaceful and letting go of your worries that it's not going to happen, and it's a lot easier to let go of worries that it's not going to happen when you realize your higher self is already there and already with you. Your higher self is already there and already with you because you guys are together as one. But the same thing goes for your mate's higher self, because, they're all together in heaven, the vortex, whatever you want to call it. And so you can tap into that, especially when you meditate, which is the best way, I think, because you're letting go of all your worries, concerns that it's not happening yet. And that's when you feel like, that peace and calm and not worrying. And that's when you can start to attract somebody like that. But yes, you'll have to work on your own issues if you want somebody If you're worried about not finding somebody, then you need to you need to focus on what you're worried about. It's a lack of faith that somebody's going to come and be there. There's a lack of faith that the kind of person that you're looking for is going to be there. And it's something that you just will have to work out yourself, but meditating is the best way to sort of let go of those fears. I just did a short about a mantra. Now you might change it up a little bit if you're focused on something else. The goal of my soul is not to get hitched. Choosing love over fear is the reason I'm here, although it doesn't rhyme anymore. But, there's other aspects here. There's things that you get worried about that it's not actually the reason that you're here. You don't need to focus on that stuff. In the Bible, it says basically that God feeds the birds. So why are you worried about going out to get something to eat? We're so often worried about going out to get something that we think we need when everything we need is actually inside of us and everything will come to us. If we just focus on healing our insides and just relaxing and not being so stressed out all the time with that lack of faith. And fear is just a lack of faith that everything's going to work out. So if you have a fear of, not finding somebody, that's just a lack of faith that they're not going to come, for instance. So I would work on yourself, but I think that one of the best techniques for me has been to just focus on, the higher self of everybody else that I'm interacting with is perfectly fine. Other people might get offended or upset with me, but that's because of their own perspective and their own things going on. I actually wrote an article about the real reason you're offended, and I think it could be very helpful. I'll leave a link below in the description box. So once you understand the three-dimensional them as, they're upset or offended by things because of their beliefs, but that their beliefs are from this 3D world and their higher selves don't have those beliefs, they don't have these limiting beliefs that we do here. So they're not going to get offended, the higher selves. And so like I said, mention when you pray or, affirm things, focus on the fact that, the higher self, them, is already calm, peaceful, collected, happy, all that stuff. And that's the best way if you're focusing on the higher self of them. There's lots of ways that you can change your perspective about things once you realize that their higher self is doing that and is constantly here and around them and, around you. And you can love them. And you can understand, like, sometimes the three-dimensional person you just need to get away from, or they need to get away from you to learn some more lessons. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you focus on the higher dimensional self of them, you can appreciate that you guys have learned some lessons. Also, before I forget, and I think this is important, if you were a mate with this person and you split apart, you're still connected to their higher self, and their higher self can sort of show up in other people. So, I believe in reincarnation, and I don't believe that reincarnation requires you to go in our linear time form. I believe you can reincarnate into the past, for instance, because, the fifth dimension's outside of time. Why would it be limited to, reincarnating in the future only? And because of that, they could probably reincarnate into the same time period. So you might find that your lover is in person 1, right? And the higher self is in there, and you're meeting with them and you're having experiences, and then you break apart. And then you meet somebody, person 2, and the higher self is in them, but having a totally different experience. And then you break apart. And then you meet, person 3, and their higher self is in person 3. And maybe it finally works out for you. And so the thing is, they're just having different experiences and different people and learning different lessons. And it doesn't necessarily mean, like, once you lose what you would call your soulmate, doesn't mean that you've lost your soulmate. You might see them in a new person that's in a completely different perspective or reality. So I think that's good for keeping up hope also for anybody who doesn't have anybody. But I think it's actually the right perspective. But of course, I would say that because I believe it. But, let me know what you guys think. I hope this has helped you out. Thanks for listening, and have a good day.